We continue now at the top of Daf Lamed Amud Aleph in Meseches Bava Basra. This is Bava Basra Daf 30a. On the previous summit, the Gemara was dealing with a case where a person is on a piece of land and someone comes and says, this is really my property. And the buyer says, really, you sold it to me. I'm a buyer of this property and I have chazaka. And the mocher over there contests the chazaka. And Rav Nachman says that the lokeach has to bring a proof to his chazaka. And Rava says that's not true. Hamotzi mechaveru olav haraya. The lokeach is sitting on the land right now. He does not need to prove his chazaka. On the contrary, it's the mocher that needs to disprove the chazaka. And the Gemara says it's actually a contradiction between Rav Nachman's ruling over there and Rava's ruling over there and the following case. The case is as follows. There was a person, Da'amar le lechavri, there was a person who said to his friend, Kol nichse devei bar sisin mizavino loch, all of the property of bar sisin I am selling to you. And the Rashbam explains, Kol nichse devei bar sisin, kolomar, means to say, Kol oson karkos shekonise me oso adam, sheshmo bar sisin, all of that land that I bought from this particular person whose name was bar sisin, I'm selling all of that property, again, mizavnina loch, I'm selling all of that property to you. Havoya hi'ara dehavi mikri devei bar sisin, there was a particular piece of land that was referred to as Bei Bar Sisin. Amar le, so he said to him, Halav devei bar sisin, that doesn't count as Bei Bar Sisin. V'ikruyehu de mikri devei bar sisin, it just happens to be called devei bar sisin, but it really is not part of the sale. So also Lakami de Rav Nachman, that came before Rav Nachman, Ukma biyada de lokeach, he said that the buyer, he gets to keep the land. That's the reverse of the previous case, because in the previous case, Rav Nachman said the buyer has to prove his chazaka. Here the buyer just gets to keep the property. And Amar le Rava said back to him, Dino hachi, is that really the halacha? Hamotzi mechaveru, all of araya, if he wants to take it from his friend, meaning if he wants to take it from the seller, he needs to bring the proof. And so here, Rava comes down on the side of the seller. So kasha de Rava ad Rava, kasha de Rav Nachman ad Rav Nachman, it's a difficulty, contradiction within Rava, and it's also a contradiction, it's a difficulty within Rav Nachman. And the Rashbam explains, the mikriya devei bar sisin kach koren lo, that's what they referred to it as. Ve'in yodua im kana mi bei bar sisin, it wasn't known that it was bought from bei bar sisin. Well, lefikach nikras kain, maybe that's why it was called that. O kach shema me'ola, maybe it was just called that forever. Ve'yerusha hi lo me'avosa, maybe it was just a Yerusha from his fathers. Ukma biyada de lokeach, so he put it, this means to say, Rav Nachman said it belongs to the lokeach, k'dem aforish taima lekamei. The reason will be explained as we go on. De ole didei rami legaluye de lav bar sisin, he has to prove that it's not bar sisin. Amar le Rava said to him, Dina hachi lotzia misafik mitachas yad hamocher, you're just going to take it away from the seller out of a doubt. Shehu muchzak, the seller is the one that's the muchzak. Rather, hamotzi mechaveru dahainu lokeach, the one who's taking it, meaning the buyer, olav lahavi re'iyas, rayas is a chus, umeachar she'ein lo raya yafsid, he has to bring the proof that he's the owner. If he doesn't have the proof, then he's going to lose out. And so the Gemara said, kasha de Rava ad Rava, kasha de Rav Nachman ad Rav Nachman. We have a difficulty within the rulings of Rava and also within the rulings of Rav Nachman. Tila'el muki lo Rav Nachman b'yad hamocher, because earlier Rav Nachman said it belongs to the seller. V'Rava b'yad halokeach, and Rava said the buyer. V'hachipcha, and here it's the exact reverse. And the Gemara continues, the Rava ad Rava lokash, it's not a contradiction within Rava, because hasam mocher kai b'nechse over there, meaning in the case of bar sisin, so it's the seller that has the chazaka, he's the one that's on the property, the buyer is trying to take it away from him, and therefore hamotzi mechaveru olav haraya applies to the buyer, he's the one that needs to bring the evidence, and hacha over here, meaning in the case in the previous summit, so lokeach kai b'nechse, it's the buyer that is sitting on the property, the seller, so to speak, is trying to take it away from the buyer, claiming that he never bought it, and so therefore the hamotzi mechaveru olav haraya works in reverse. In that case, it's the seller that needs to bring the evidence. Essentially, Rava is consistent and always says hamotzi mechaveru olav haraya, and the question then is on Rav Nachman, and the Gemara says, Rav Nachman ad Rav Nachman nami lo kasha, when it comes to Rav Nachman as well, it's not difficult. Kevon do amar le devei bar sisin, since he said that I'm selling you anything that's bei bar sisin, umikriya devei bar sisin, and this is called devei bar sisin, this is called bar sisin's property, so the initial assumption is going to be that this was part of the sale and belongs to the buyer. Aledi de ramya legaluye de lav devei bar sisin, he needs to prove that it's not devei bar sisin. Aval hacha, but over here, when we're talking in the case of the person sitting on the property claiming chazaka, lo yehei ela de nokit shtar, it should be no different than somebody who has a shtar. Milo amrinan le, wouldn't we say to him if he had a shtar kayim shtarach, that you have to certify your shtar, you have to verify your shtar, v'kum b'nichse, and then be in the property, so the same sense, he has to prove his chazaka. And the Rashbam explains, Milo amrinan lekayim shtarach, wouldn't we say that you have to certify your shtar, acharei shamocha rotza lepaslo, if you have a situation where the seller is trying to disqualify the shtar, so he has to certify. V'hachazaka shel shalosh hashanim b'makom hashtari ba. Now the chazak of 3 years is essentially in place of the shtar. U'me'achar shamocher ma'ara al chazaka, so if the seller is saying the chazak is not good, she'ein a chazak, it's not a chazaka, tzarech zeh lohavi eidim shechezkasu gemura shelo dar zeh ima. So this person has to bring witnesses that he really did have a full chazaka, that the other person wasn't living together with him, which would have ruined the chazaka. And the Gemara continues at the 2 dots. Sahu damar le lechaver, there was a person who said to his friend, my boy is Bahai Besa, what are you doing in this house? This house belongs to me. Amar le said to me, Noch zavinte, I bought it from you, v'achalte shnei chazak, and I've been here the years to establish a chazak, it's my house now. Amar le said to him, B'shukei beroi havoy, I was in the outer markets, essentially the way the Rashbam explains, I was far away, there's no way I would have known. Amar le said to him, Vo'isli sahadi, but I have witnesses, T'chol shos havos, it's tlosin yomi, that every year you would come for 30 days, so you were present the amount of time you needed to be able to protest, and therefore I do have a chazaka because you didn't protest. Amar le said back to him, Tlosin yomi b'shukoi, I have it written for the 30 days I was busy in the marketplace, so therefore I was not able to protest. And the question is that a good claim? Can he claim he was busy in the market for the 30 days? Amar Rava says, Avid inish t'chol tlosin yomi tarad b'shukoi. It does happen that people for 30 days will be busy in the marketplace, and therefore he does have a good excuse, a good claim as to why he did not protest. And the Gemara continues, Hahu damar le lechaver, there was a person that said to his friend, my boy is b'hayara, what are you doing in this land? Amar le said to him, Miplanya zivinta, I bought it from so-and-so. Do Amar li dezavna minach, and he said to me that he bought it from you. Amar le said to him, At lav kamodis, but do you not admit? And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Lamed Amid Beis.